Hey everyone, Dalen with another random making encounter. It's always good to see you. This is video 2 in a multi-video series where we're gonna build a book Nook together. We're gonna do some nooking together, which I'm gonna stop saying this, but it still feels a little inappropriate. However, in the first video, we built the box, the case for our book Nook. Link at the end of this video. In this video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create the bones of the interior, the structure, the main kind of basic structure that will form the foundation of our finished diorama. So, as we go through this video, put your thinking cap on, do some brainstorming, post some comments down below, like comments you like, with ideas about what this Nook should be. I'm gonna sift through, I'm gonna kind of figure out what makes the most sense out of those comments, and then that's what we'll go and build. So let's jump in, let's get these bones put together so that we can move on to the really fun stuff, which is the finishing. Let's get started. For this part of the book Nook build, we really only need a few things. We need some chipboard, some 1/4" wood strips or 6mm in bass or balsa, and some glue. Mapboard is about the right weight for this. We don't want something as thick as a foam core, even 1/8". It's a little too thick. We'll need a way to cut all of the stuff, utility knife, razor saw, and a miter box, mini chop saw maybe, a way to measure, mark, clip, clamp, and again, glue. As far as our cut list, we're gonna measure as we go along and just kind of eyeball things. We will need a floor, a couple side walls, a back wall, and a ceiling. Now, razor saw is what I'm gonna start with to cut the strip material. It is a really handy tool when you're cutting things like this. This is some 6mm basswood or 1/4" basswood. If you are using a razor saw, I would really recommend using balsa. It's a lot easier to cut. Our tag or chipboard is about 50 point for most of it, and I've got some heavier 80 point for the floor. You certainly could get away with one weight, and actually the weight of mapboard is about the right thickness. I'm going to measure the interior depth and width for the floor. That's the first thing I'm going to start with. And I'm gonna give myself a little bit of wiggle room. So whatever that dimension was, I'm gonna shave maybe a 1/16 of an inch off. We've got, with the overlap of the face of the box, we've got some room for a little bit of slop. And it's always better to have some allowance so that nothing binds when you go to put everything into it. It's happened to me in the past, trust me. It's a lot of cutting, shaving, and cursing. When I'm cutting through heavy board like this, it's a lot of light scores with a sharp blade. I am going to put a link in the description for a straight edge that has a little flip up guard. I've been kind of living on the edge here with not having something like that to protect fingers when I'm cutting board like this. If you're careful, yes, you can get away with it, but man, having that blade jump up off that straight edge is always a painful moment or scary moment if you miss your fingers. And it's really often hard to keep your fingers completely out of the way. You can see my thumb there is a little exposed. So safety first. You can see there's about a 1/4" here in the back. That's intentional. It's gonna allow for glazing in the front and then maybe a panel in the back to just enclose everything once we're done. Here's where that 1/4" material comes into play. We're gonna frame it out. We're basically this kind of a little bit like we're building a house. So our panels are our drywall or our underlayment for our flooring, and then this balsa or basswood is the framing timbers. I'm gonna start with the razor saw and miter box. If I was using balsa, a couple swipes of this and I would have been through it. This basswood takes a bit more work to get through. And the miter box jumps around a lot. It's only because I don't have the lip that's on the base of the miter box hooked over the edge of the bench. It's a lot easier than I'm making it look, trust me. Trust me. All right. Once your pieces are cut, it's time to glue them onto the panels, and I'm going to use the world's absolute tiniest micro glue applicator to painfully apply very tiny little blobs of glue. I'm going to change to a bottle with a bigger schnozzle on it later. I don't even know what I was thinking there. But apply some glue. Could be wood glue, could be craft glue, tacky glue. You want something that's got a little bit of grab to it. Tacky craft glues are great for this kind of stuff because they just kind of grab that material quicker and you can move a little bit faster. Busting out the bucket of orange clamps here to hold everything in place. When you're gluing up a lot of panels, if you want to move quickly, it's nice to have a handful of these things. These could be bulldog clips, clothespins. You could weight it down with something to hold it in place. You really just need to keep the strips in contact with the board long enough for that glue to set up and ensure that they don't separate. I'm going to work my way around, and just as I'm going, I'm just going to kind of eyeball things, mark them, and cut them. And now I've gotten lazy and I've busted out the chop saw. This is a Proxxon little mini chop saw, not sponsored, not a paid endorsement, paid full price. The thing that I like about power tools is it makes the process go a lot faster. And I don't think you get necessarily any better accuracy, but you can move a lot faster, especially when you're cutting through tougher materials. With this chop saw, there are some guides and gauges that you can use that make repeated cuts a lot nicer, but this is not a necessary tool at all. This is very much a luxury item, and you could use a miter box and a razor saw, no problem. I kind of, from the tool perspective, and my bank account is the lesser for it, as I have the philosophy of it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And that is truly something that is a bit of a sickness. I reinforced the floor a little bit with cross strips because I don't want the floor to bow or pucker at all. I want to really try and hold it as flat as humanly possible. Quick test fit to make sure nothing's gone awry in the glue up process, and then I'm going to use the floor to measure the height of the wall. So the height of the wall is the interior dimension minus the thickness of the floor, and then we're going to give ourselves just a little bit of slop, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, millimeter or two, to just give ourselves some wiggle room. The process is very much the same. Cut the panel, trim the sticks, glue the sticks, get glue on your fingers, get glue on your panels, and then rinse your fingers and repeat. Now you might be asking yourself, Dalen, why are we doing this? Well, if you've ever built a book nook, you realize that it is a ship in a bottle kind of situation. It's really hard to work in the box. So what we're doing is we're creating a box in a box, which allows us to have access to as many surfaces as possible while we're working on it. Now we could do this by not completely assembling the box, but I think there are some downsides to that as well, because you're always kind of finishing up the box, and it also actually doesn't address the second advantage to this process in providing space for things like lighting and wiring. You also oftentimes want to have some additional dimension or space to imply more space within the box. I think that a lot of really effective book nooks are those that always are trying to trick you into thinking that as you're looking into this nook, there is more to it than what you can simply see. There's a world beyond what you can see. So this allows us to build in some additional space as well. So I think we're actually up to kind of 3 benefits: access to all of the surfaces, room for wiring and electronics, and the ability to imply space beyond what we're seeing in the nook. The back wall is the width of the nook minus the thickness of the 2 side walls. We could try and be a little precise on this one. We don't need to build in slop. We've kind of already done that with our flooring, so we're just measuring to kind of get that to fit as snugly as possible. And then I'm just roughing in a door here. I've offset it a little bit just to add a little bit of visual interest. This could be really whatever size or shape you want it to be. And this is going back to that idea of implying something that we're looking into and looking through in the Nook. So once we figure out what the theme is, so I hope you've got your thinking caps on, you've been brainstorming, this will be a way for us to maybe have that door cracked, or maybe have something deeper and beyond the door to imply a world beyond what we're just seeing. I'm simply framing this out quickly just to make sure that it doesn't bow or warp as we apply other things to the surfaces of the wall. You can see how those clamps get eaten up pretty quick, especially if you're gluing up multiple panels. Again, clothespins are a great option. I'm going to inset this back wall about an inch-ish. No real rule of thumb here. If you need more space in the back for additional stuff that you're going to have when you look through the door, you can certainly push this wall up more. But this also allows for a little bit of space for things like power switches or power plugs or a battery pack, other things that have a lot of depth to them, kind of a utility space, if you will. And then I'm just going to clamp this up and try and make sure that everything is as square as possible. Again, this is not hyper precision, but we do want it to be in the ballpark. And that's it. I'm really going to be gluing up, as far as the main initial construction, the floor, one side wall, and the back wall. Once I had the door kind of roughed out, I finally was able to decide on a size and placement for the window. This is also very much just roughed in and can be modified as we go along, but it kind of gives you an idea that we want to have also a window that we can do something with. And then really that is kind of the main part of the construction. I'm going to do one final quick test fit to make sure that I haven't done something completely ridiculous and it no longer fits in the Nook. But you can see here we're actually already starting to create an environment or a space that's got some depth to it. And because we framed out the walls, it gives the Nook a little bit more substantial feel to it. The walls feel thicker because frankly they're the thickness of the framed out walls. The last little piece is the ceiling. I just kind of forget about this and put it off till the last minute. You can see I left some gaps in the back to allow for some wiring if we choose to put some lighting in the ceiling. I should have done that on the back wall as well. I'm gonna have to go retcon that and hog out some gaps for the wire to run, but that's really about it. You can see that, clamped up, I have not glued that sidewall. At this point, we're ready to actually go ahead and start on our interior ideas and finishing. Hope you found this video helpful. Our next video is going to be that kicking off that finishing. So again, comments down in the description, like comments that you like. There are affiliate links down in the description for many of the tools and materials used in this build, along with your likes, subscribes, shares, comments. All of those things go to help support the channel and allow me to continue to make content for you and with you. As always, it is great to hang out with you for a bit, for 15 minutes or so here. We'll look forward to seeing you again as we start to finish the interior with another random making encounter.